part of my 80%, 5% formula for freedom and flow. It's where 80% represents the amount of intensity you want to constantly use to make continuous growth. But that 5% is how much beyond your comfort zone you want to push at any given time to make sure you're making continuous improvement. And that 5% is important because 5% is just enough that you're not overwhelming yourself with the enormity of your circumstances. You're not overwhelmed by being in the middle of that circle of death. And yet you're still doing enough that you're getting the satisfaction and fulfillment of continuous growth. That continuous satisfaction keeps you going, as does the fact that you're not overwhelming yourself with it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Flow Over Fear. And today on 3 Things, I'm going to share some strategies on how you can expand your comfort zone. And as you can see behind me, I'm expanding my comfort zone a bit today by getting out of my regular studio. You'll see that I do not have, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that I do not have the beautiful sign, the Flow Over Fear sign behind me. Instead, I have a fairly used bed that I have been sleeping in because I am in a hotel room. That is right. But don't worry, I have not been kicked out by Mrs. Flow Over Fear. I am just on a work trip right now. And so from time to time, you'll see me out and about. But do not worry, because the quality of these episodes will not go down. The quality of this episode will not go down. I will still deliver the same value as I always do, and even more so in this episode, because we're going to be talking a lot about comfort zone. And this is something that is pretty near and dear to me because I've seen both sides of it. I've been on both sides of that comfort spectrum where I've desired to stay away from discomfort as much as possible. And I have seen the other side of it by wanting to live in greater discomfort to grow my comfort zone. And so I'm going to share some ways about that because ultimately, if you can expand your comfort zone in a controlled way, if you can expand it and make your comfort zone bigger, you're going to find greater freedom in your life. And that's the deal. Like, there is greater freedom beyond fear. We tend to think of fear when we experience it as this obstacle that exists in our life. We feel like it's an obstacle in the way of our goals, whether it's any of the big 3 non-danger fears that we experience, self-doubt, overwhelm, uncertainty. Those tend to feel like obstacles in the way of our achievement. But in reality, they're not obstacles. And if we can embrace them, if we can use them as signals to grow beyond them, we can get beyond that and find greater freedom in our lives, because the more we expand our comfort zone, the freer we become. The problem is that we are so motivated in this day and age by comfort. I mean, but within the last, few centuries or so, we have developed significant comforts within our lives that, evolutionarily speaking, a lot of the fears that used to get to us just aren't really a reality anymore. We don't have to fear the things we feared when we were out in the wilderness, wandering around. And especially in the first world, we don't experience those danger fears as often. And we have a lot of comforts in our lives. We have television, we have social networks, we have very comfortable hotel beds like I have behind me. We have curtains that are drawn to drown out the light. We have food that we enjoy. We have the internet, all sorts of things that contribute to our comfort. It is surrounding us. There is no shortage of ways to be comfortable. However, what that does is that when we insist on being comfortable at the expense of the right kind of discomfort and the right level of discomfort, we tend to have that comfort zone that we have tends to compress upon us. That's right. if you're not expanding your comfort zone, just like any other muscle that you have, if you're not growing your muscles, or you're not working on maintaining the size of your muscles, or your strength in general, you will atrophy and those muscles will decline. The same is true for your comfort zone. If you are not expanding your comfort zone is compressing upon you, and it becomes increasingly painful. So that if you're not growing your comfort zone, discomfort will find you. And when discomfort finds you, it usually comes in the form of feeling resentful, or feeling unfulfilled, or feeling unhappy, or feeling more afraid. Ultimately, you become a victim of your circumstances, a prisoner to those fears, because your comfort zone has compressed so much upon you that life itself becomes uncomfortable, simply because you've been trying to avoid discomfort. And when that happens, you lose your freedom. That's why freedom and your comfort zone are so intertwined, because freedom is this idea that we're free, is this idea that we have the capability to experience more life in our years, that we can experience more and more life. And we lose that capability. We lose that freedom if we're seeking constant comfort. But the right kind of discomfort, and I use that term correctly, the right kind of discomfort helps us to expand our comfort zones. And there's specific ways in which we can do that. And I remember in my own life, there were experiences where I leaned more into comfort than discomfort. And that happened a lot within sports, and it translated into all sorts of different things as well, by the way. I mean, I avoided talking to the girls that I liked in high school because I was afraid of the fear. I feared the rejection. I feared the sting of rejection. And so I stayed in my comfort zone and I avoided talking to them. What was the result? Well, the result was frustration, disappointment, sadness, envy, jealousy. When of course I didn't get the date with the girl that I liked, because I didn't try. And then I saw those particular girls going out with other guys, and it was sad to me. But that happened simply because I didn't try, because I wasn't willing to lean into the right kind of discomfort. And that was true in sports as well. I remember when I played Pee Wee football, and I used play with air quotes, right? I started playing football when I was probably about 8 years old. And I played for a very short period of time. And the reason I wanted to play was because I really loved the idea of wearing pads. I really loved watching football in the professional football in those days, like John Elway, Roger Staubach. Those guys were just, Joe Montana. It was incredible to watch them. And so I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to wear the helmet and the pads and the jerseys and be a part of a team. And so I joined Pee Wee football. I joined the Mission Viejo Cowboys. And when I joined, I was really thrilled to dress up and do some of the drills, but there was always this one drill that I was afraid of. I mean, I enjoyed playing the sport. I mean, I enjoyed playing in the games and doing all that kind of stuff. But there was one drill that I dreaded. And because it caused so much fear and so much discomfort in me. All of the kids would get in a circle, basically surround like this wide circle where in the middle, the coach would call two of the kids on the team to come out and kind of look at each other and face each other. And I called it the circle of death. The coaches didn't call it that. They called it something else, probably the tackle drill or something weird. I called it the circle of death because that's what it felt like to me. As this circle of death formed and all of the kids, in unison chanted, hit, 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 hit. These two kids would stare at each other menacingly. And then when the coach said go and blew his whistle, they charged at each other full speed, full force, and they hit each other until one of them was tackled. And that was the entire drill. And there was no other point to this drill other than to torture the poor 9-year-old children that were in the middle of the circle. Well, to be fair, I think that the purpose was to kind of desensitize the kids to getting hit, which this was the 80s. So we didn't have a lot of the concussion worries that we have now. So probably not the healthiest thing in the world for kids to do. So if I'm being honest, I don't really regret my decision for not wanting to do that, or not wanting to or for wanting to quit later. But I did it for the wrong reasons. And that's why I'm sharing this story. But anyway, whenever my name was called to get into that circle, I was terrified. I would get in there, and the first couple times I didn't know what was going to happen. So I just went in there. Ignorance is bliss. And then I kind of jogged at the other kid who came barreling after me, and he hit me in the chest, knocked the wind out of me, and I collapsed over, just this heap of terror with no breath to shout my frightened scaredness and all that kind of stuff. And so whenever I got called in there, towards the end, I would get called in there and I would start crying in front of all of these peewee football kids, which, as you can imagine, they were all very supportive. They came over and asked me if everything was okay and asked me if I needed anything. No, they didn't do that at all. They made ridiculous amounts of fun of me because I was crying as a football player. So needless to say, within a couple of weeks, I quit football altogether because it was outside of my comfort zone. And I remember that decision to quit. My parents were on the phone with the coach, and they asked me if I wanted to quit while I was playing Nintendo, while I was playing a video game that was entirely comfortable to me. And I said, yeah, I want to quit. I don't want to go back there. I was scared to death. Again, probably the right decision because really, football wasn't my sport. It really wasn't. But I quit for the wrong reasons. And that kind of demonstrates something that, like, if we can learn to lean into discomfort in a healthy way, we can actually grow our comfort zone. Certainly not to the level of maybe traumatic childhood football experiences, but to a smaller degree, we can do that. We can actually expand our comfort zones and grow into something that we can become. I like to use the rule of 5%. And this is part of my 80%, 5% formula for freedom and flow. It's where 80% represents the amount of intensity you want to constantly use to make continuous growth. But that 5% is how much beyond your comfort zone you want to push at any given time to make sure you're making continuous improvement. And that 5% is important because 5% is just enough that you're not overwhelming yourself with the enormity of your circumstances. You're not overwhelmed by being in the middle of that circle of death. And yet you're still doing enough that you're getting the satisfaction and fulfillment of continuous growth. That continuous satisfaction keeps you going, as does the fact that you're not overwhelming yourself with it. So there's really 3 rules I want to try and live by when I'm expanding my comfort zone. And these might apply to you as well. The first is you should try to just build that muscle on a daily basis. Try to do something that scares you on a daily basis. And this doesn't mean going out and like doing something ridiculously scary. This can be the same thing every day that's just slightly past your comfort zone. Again, just think 5%. Something that's not going to kill you or harm you, but is still uncomfortable, it still gives that sense of discomfort. And one of the big ways in which I do that every day is a cold shower or a cold bath, an ice bath. And it's really simple because in Colorado, the water gets so cold that it feels wildly uncomfortable. It's like 50 degrees at the highest, and then usually gets down to like 40 in the middle of winter. So I turn that on and I get in a cold shower immediately. One of the first things I do in the morning. Why? Because I can tell myself in those instances that I can do things that are outside my comfort zone. It keeps it first thing in the morning. It keeps me going in that direction of discomfort. It expands my comfort zone. It tells my brain that I'm not going to negotiate with it, and that it will, and that I am going to grow my comfort zone. That still to this day, and I've been doing this for a few years now, the cold shower for a few years now. That every day it's not comfortable. Every day it's an uncomfortable thing. Every day I don't want to do it, but I do it anyway because it's something I can control. It's something that's outside of my comfort zone. And it's something that once I do it, shows me that I can do things that are uncomfortable. It's not because of any of the proposed health benefits necessarily. I can't speak to any of those, though. I can't speak to any of the idea that it's going to contribute to weight loss or mental health or anything like that. But I can say that it does. It is something that is wildly uncomfortable, and something once you do it, you push yourself past your comfort zone. You can feel happy for yourself. And I will say it also gives you a lot of more energy. But that's just one example. There are other examples of things that you can do on a daily basis that are uncomfortable, that can take you out of your comfort zone, and that are safe and that aren't dangerous. Like, I am not talking about doing things that are dangerous here. And I want to really preface that. Don't put yourself in danger. The point is to push yourself past your comfort zone in a variety of different ways. Maybe it's or in ways that are safe. So maybe it has to do with something from a work perspective, that you're pushing yourself past your comfort zone on a proposal that you want to make. Maybe it's talking to a new person every day if you have a social anxiety issue, but it's something small and significant that you could do on a daily basis to build that muscle. That is, it's a great way to expand your comfort zone. And it gets back to the idea that anything that is worth doing is not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. So putting yourself in a situation by asking yourself, what can I do that's uncomfortable today? How many times can I get rejected today? Or how many people can I talk to that I wouldn't regularly talk to? Or how many, or can I take a cold shower? Whatever it may be. Those kinds of things just help us to expand that comfort zone, and it's good to embrace that discomfort. A lot of people take this to the extreme, and it gets dangerous. That's why you want to just make sure that you're not going to the extreme. You're just you're just doing what you can to expand your comfort zone today. So that's the first one. Do something that is uncomfortable every single day. And then the second one I want to share is create an adventure list. This is another big one that I have. I love the idea of dreaming big, and if we can put our dreams out there, the things that we want to run toward, the things that really light us up, that fill us up, and make us want to live this life. Well, then we have something that we're pursuing and we're not running away from. A lot of times we run away from the discomfort. We run away from the things that scare us. We run away from certain ideas. Like, I'm afraid of heights. So now I'm putting myself in this box that decreases my freedom from all of the things that involve heights that I cannot do. Or I am afraid of confrontation. So I'm going to put myself in this box where I can't do the things that I want to do with these people that I'll put myself in situations where I can't do a certain thing, or I have to do a certain thing because I don't want to have a confrontation with this person. And so it puts you in that box of less and less freedom. And the more boxes you have, the more sacred cows you have in your life for things you can't do because they're uncomfortable, the less freedom you have. So instead, create that adventure list of things that you do want to do. What, despite the fear, regardless of the fears that you have, take the fears off the table. Don't, because the fears are going to be part of it, of anything that we do. What really lights you up? What do you really want to do? Do you want to go on a trip to Antarctica? Do you want to go to a trip, or do you want to go to Europe someday? Or do you want to do an Ironman triathlon? Do you want to run a marathon? Those things, some of those things have inherent fears in them. Some of them have these points of discomfort that you need to immerse yourself in order to pursue them. And defining that list first and foremost actually gives you at least a point of reference for those small, uncomfortable things that you can do to build your tolerance and expand your comfort zone. And you could start to knock those off every year. So if your dream is to be a 7-figure speaker, say, or you want to speak on stage, but you have a fear of public speaking, Well, then you can start to move in that direction by immersing yourself in on that on a daily basis. What's that uncomfortable thing that you can do today to push you in that direction? Is it talking to two people? Is it sharing a YouTube video? Is it doing something that puts you on path in that direction in a small way? But that adventure list gives you a point of reference to actually build into and knock those off. And what I love to do with the adventure list is every quarter, every 90 days, review that adventure list and decide on at least one that I can try to achieve in that next quarter. That way it gives me 90 days to look at how I can achieve that goal. Some of them are too big to do in 90 days. That's just going to be a fact of the matter. But it also gives you that accountability and that path that you are moving into a life of fulfillment and freedom because you're pushing yourself in that direction. I mean, there are tons of shows out there that talk about here's how you pursue financial freedom. And through financial freedom, you can experience lifestyle freedom and you can experience all these things. But money's not the constraint. Finances are not the constraint to your best life. Because those formulas are out there, readily available to become as wealthy as you want to get. You know what's standing in your way? Your fear of discomfort, your fear of getting outside of your comfort zone. So doing the things that will help you get outside of your comfort zone, those are the things that are going to lift you up and put you in the direction of fulfillment and greater freedom. That's how you get there. And so focus on that. Build the adventure list. Focus on the things that you want to achieve. And then put them on a list. And then step by step, make yourself uncomfortable in the ways that bring you in that direction. And the final piece that I will say regarding this, the last one that I want to share, is going to be a bit counterintuitive, because you're hearing me say, put yourself in uncomfortable situations on a daily basis, build your adventure list, make yourself uncomfortable, lean into that discomfort. But my final piece to you is don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people avoid discomfort in the first place, because they amplify the level of discomfort that they're going to feel. They go to the worst case scenario. Have you ever done that where you've avoided something, a dream, something that you've wanted to achieve because you looked at the worst case scenario, the thing that probably would never occur? Like, I don't want to talk to that girl or that guy that I like because they're going to make fun of the way I look or ridicule me on Facebook or laugh in my face. That's like the worst case scenario, right? Is that really going to happen? I mean, ask yourself that question too as you're doing it. Is that really true? But the truth is we put ourselves in that enormity of that situation because we fear the worst case scenario. But we also don't want to have to overdo it. If you're afraid of heights, for example, don't jump in a plane immediately and go skydiving, because that's going to reinforce the fear of the discomfort in the first place. Sure, you will survive that skydiving trip, but it will terrify you. And when it terrifies you, you may never want to approach any kind of discomfort again on that. Now, there's a couple of ways that could turn out. I mean, it could desensitize you and you could absolutely love it, but you're rolling the dice. So my suggestion to you is that instead of rolling the dice and taking a gamble on your own adventures, instead, do it safely, one small step at a time. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo this thing. You don't need to be a unicorn. We have a lot of unicorns. We have a lot of people that are doing incredibly difficult and challenging things. And maybe you're one of them, and I'm not going to discount that. But if we look at the thing that we want to achieve and we look at it that as the mountain, let's just take skydiving as an example. Say skydiving is something you really want to do, but you're terrified of heights. If you immediately jump into a plane and try, or if you think you need to immediately go into a plane and do that, and then you turn your back on it, it's a bigger hurdle to cross to get in the plane if you have that fear of heights. So first, just continuous immersion. continuous immersion within that, like first climb a ladder, then safely, climb onto a higher place, go to a high-rise building and stand at the top of that. I was recently in a high-rise in Chicago. I'm terrified of heights too, but I don't go to a lot of high-rises. And I went up to the 48th floor and looked out the window, and I was terrified. I was weird. I was this weird person that was just like, where everybody was standing next to the window in this guy's apartment, and I had to stand off to the side because my body would not bring me to the window. Eventually I got there, but it's one of those things you have to immerse yourself gradually in on that. But do so in a way that you just know that you don't have to overdo it. You don't. Discomfort is not something that you have to overdo in order to build that muscle. Think of it like I can't even think of the word. I don't know why I can't think of the word rubber band. Yes, think of a rubber band. When you expand it too quickly, it breaks, right? You want to just gradually expand it, expand that elasticity. That's how you approach it, gradually over time. Don't overdo it. Rest frequently. Rest is best. Remember the 80%, 5% rule, which I've talked about here many times. You want to slow down and nudge. Slow down and nudge. Slow down to your 80% capacity, which builds capacity over time, and then push and then nudge. Push past your comfort zone 5% at a time. That's all it takes. And if you do that, if you can expand your comfort zone in a number of different ways, small ways, doesn't take much, then your life where you are leaning more into discomfort will expand your comfort zone, and you'll find greater freedom. So it could be, the little things that you can do today, if you find an escalator, that you are at a store or you're at the airport or somewhere where they have an escalator, maybe if you're capable, walk up or down the escalator to get that extra exercise. That's a small way to lean into discomfort instead of letting it carry you. If you happen to go to Disneyland and you don't need a rover, maybe don't use the rover. Maybe walk around the park or something like that. There are numbers of small ways in which you could lean into discomfort that will help you grow. And if you do that, if you can expand your comfort zone gradually, as you expand your comfort zone, your freedom will grow as well. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.